By and large, female serial killers seem to be few and far between. But the story of Leonarda Cianciulli underscores the idea that dangerous insanity knows no gender. Leonarda Cianciulli was born in 1894 in Montella Avellino, in what was at the time known as the Kingdom of Italy. She had a hard life as a child, which led to 2 separate suicide attempts. And as one could imagine, the events of her childhood would precipitate a deeply troubled adulthood. In 1917, when she was 23, she married a registry office clerk named Raphael Pansardi. Her mother did not approve of this marriage at all, since the family already had plans for her to marry someone else. This was still fairly common in the early 20th century. Leonarda said that when she refused to break off her marriage, her mother put a curse on her, as well as her husband. In 1921, she and her husband moved back to his hometown of Lauria Potenza. And just a few years later, in 1927, her husband would be jailed for fraud. A couple years after that, their home was destroyed in the Irpinia earthquake. As a result, they moved several times, finally settling down in Correggio, where Leonarda opened up a small shop. She was popular and well-respected in her neighborhood, and it seemed like a life of uncertainty and tragedy was potentially looking brighter. Leonarda had 17 pregnancies during her marriage, which is a lot even for the time. 3 of her kids died due to miscarriage. 10 more would die when they were still children. As is understandable, she became very protective of her 4 surviving children, going to great lengths to ensure their enduring safety. Some of her actions were born out of a less than optimistic visit to a fortune teller, who had told her that she would get married and have children, but that all of them would die young. Another palm reader told her that she saw prison in her right hand and a criminal asylum in the left. Coincidentally, Leonarda Cianciulli also had the misfortune of living in Italy when World War II broke out. In 1939, her oldest son and arguably favorite child, Giuseppe, joined the Royal Italian Army. For a protective mother like Leonarda, this was certainly among the worst of scenarios, and she resolved to protect him no matter what it took. Through some sort of cognitive misfire, she decided that in order to save him, she must resort to human sacrifice. Her first victim was Faustina Setti, a spinster who had come to Leonarda to ask for help finding a husband. Leonarda told her that she'd found a good husband for her in another town called Pola, but implored Setti to not tell anyone about it. She persuaded Setti to write postcards and letters to her friends and relatives in advance, which were to be mailed once she arrived in Pola. Faustina Setti came to visit Leonarda one last time before her trip. With her back turned, Cianciulli raised an axe, burying the blade in the back of Setti's head, nearly decapitating her. She dragged the body into a closet and proceeded to cut it up into 9 different pieces. Blood was gathered in a basin below. As if the scenario could not get any worse, her official court statements described in great detail the horrific sequence of events that followed. Cianciulli put the pieces of the body into a pot and added caustic soda, which she had purchased for soap making in her store. After stirring, the body parts broke down and turned into a thick, dark mush that she carried with buckets to a nearby septic tank. As for the blood, she waited until it coagulated, then dried it out in her oven before mixing it with flour, sugar, chocolate, milk, and eggs. She turned the blood into tea cakes that she then served to neighbors and friends who came to visit. She also said that she ate some herself. Some sources also say that Cianciulli received Seti's life savings of 30,000 lira as payment for her relationship arrangement services. And because Faustina had sent everyone letters saying that she was venturing off to another town, nobody was suspicious about her absence. Cianciulli's second victim was Francesca Soavi, who had asked her for assistance in finding a job. Having been promised a job at a school for girls in another town, just like the previous victim, Francesca was persuaded by Leonarda to write postcards to friends and family detailing her plans to move and start working at the school. When she went to visit Leonarda one last time before her trip, Cianciulli gave her drugged wine before brutally killing her with an axe. Francesca's body was also dissolved, and her blood used to make tea cakes. Cianciulli's third and final victim was a widow named Virginia Cianciulli, who was formerly a soprano at La Scala, a famous opera house. Having fallen on hard times, Cianciulli was looking for a job and turned to Cianciulli for help. Leonarda told her that she'd found her a job opportunity as the secretary for a mysterious producer for an entertainment enterprise in Florence. Under strikingly familiar circumstances, Cianciulli was struck down violently with an axe, just like the previous two victims. But instead of dissolving Cianciulli's body, she instead, in effect, melted it down to make soap. In court, Cianciulli explained that once the body parts had broken down, she added a bottle of cologne and boiled the remains into what she described as, quote, some most acceptable creamy soap. She gave the bars of soap to her neighbors, and of course, proceeded to make tea cakes from Cianciulli's blood, which were apparently better than the previous human tea cakes she had made. During her trial, Leonarda Cianciulli noted that Virginia was, quote, really sweet. Shortly after her disappearance, Cianciulli's sister-in-law started to become suspicious. A few days prior, she had seen her enter Leonarda Cianciulli's residence, but never saw her leave. Desperate, she went to the police, who opened up an investigation and quickly arrested Leonarda Cianciulli. At first, she did not confess. However, when the police began to suspect that her son had been the murderer, she confessed to the murders to ensure that he wasn't blamed. The subsequent trial would reveal precise, step-by-step details of the murders. Cianciulli even went so far as to offer tips on how best to prepare human bodies for consumption. During the trial, Cianciulli remained stoic and composed while she answered questions with seemingly no remorse. In fact, onlookers noted an air of pride in her tone and behavior. Leonarda Cianciulli was found guilty and sentenced to 30 years in prison, as well as 3 years in a criminal asylum. She died in jail in 1970 at the age of 76. Artifacts from this bizarre case, such as the pot she used to boil her victims, are currently on display at the Criminological Museum in Rome. The bizarre but true story has crossed the social threshold between shock and satire. As a result, the story inspired numerous productions, including a dark comedy entitled Love and Magic in Mama's Kitchen, which had a run on Broadway in 1983. My name is Scott, and thank you so much for watching. We're a group of curious and passionate humans, creating documentary-style content for those who share our curiosity, ask questions, and seek to dig deeper in a world where almost everything isn't quite what it seems. We are Mystery Syndicate. If you like what we do, please consider subscribing to our YouTube channel, leave a comment, and give this video a like. And to be notified when we post new videos, hit that notification bell. Also, check us out on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and Patreon. And for exclusive merchandise, visit our website at www.mysterysyndicate.com. From all of us at Mystery Syndicate, thank you again. We sincerely appreciate your support.